Let's look at enrich. Enrich. It's a nice word, enrich. To enrich an experience, I think, is to create more complexity, more interest. Something that is enriched means it's gone from basic to something more than basic. It's been enriched. Like I saw a flower, like flour, enriched flour, where you have white flour and you put some vitamins in it. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, enrich. The process that we're talking about can be approached really generally in two different ways. One is more short-term, one is more long-term. And it shouldn't be a surprise that oftentimes repeated short terms make a long term. So, a long time ago, depending on what you think is a long time, in the 1940s in Canada, there's this fellow named Donald Hebb, H-E-B-B, Hebb, and he was interested in neuroplasticity. Actually, way before it was called that, because of his work, it was called Hebbian learning. He's the guy that came up with that bumper sticker that everybody, well, many people have heard about for neuroplasticity. Fire it to wire it. Nerves that fire together, wire together. So, classic. He did an experiment with rodents, rats, and they might have been mice. Same. No, that's not what you'd say if one ran across. Anyway, with rodents. Same species, everything, same genetics, everything. In the same room, so same temperature, same sound. One habitat was very Spartan. Nothing much there. The other one was quite enriched. All sorts of colors and different kinds of habitat, terrains, and they were fed the same food. Everything was the same except the habitat. And you might guess, the ones in the Spartan habitat started to have mood changes. They became kind of aggressive towards each other. Their fur started to get more ruffled. They even began to lose some weight, even though the food was there. And then, you'll know, in the other one, actually, they were quite content. Their fur looked great. They were not aggressive. They were entertained. And then later, they call it sacrifice. They cut them open. Not only was their behavior distinctly different, actually, the brains in the Spartan had gotten smaller, and the brains in the enriched environment had gotten larger. There was actually not just behavior, not just even synaptic, but actually neurogenesis or neurodeath. And the only difference was the enriched nature of their environment. So that was the basis. Okay, I can tell you now, here is a 5-step process taken from environmental enrichment. A subset is called sensory enrichment. It follows the same principles. It's a little bit more targeted. Instead of an entire environment, and by the way, these environmental rooms are in Bangkok. I was on a panel with a couple of Thai neurologists, and they've developed these rooms, and they are being used in an attempt to influence, I'll say treat, to influence either neurodiverse spectrum kids, autism, or persons, adults in early stage and mid-stage dementia. Just by being in that room a couple of hours a day. That's environmental enrichment. Sensory enrichment is a subset. It's a way where you don't use the whole environment, you supply something. By the way, that's the NeuroVIZR. There are 5 things. Take 2 of the senses and stimulate them simultaneously. In autism studies right now, oftentimes they combine touch and smell. we combine light and sound. Number one. Number two, the experience should be novel. It should be unlike what normally happens. So if light and sound, like we're using light and sound right now, but it's pretty conventional, the combination of the two senses should create a novel experience, something unusual, meaning something that draws your attention. Number three, you should do it so that there's no distraction. When it's happening, there shouldn't be competing signals. Number four, you do it of your own free will. You're not being forced. Number five, you're going to like this, so we're talking about it later, is optimally it should be enjoyable. That's how you create neuroplastic change in the brain in an enrichment process. So at the very heart of the NeuroVIZR design, all the different sessions in their own way, after we get your attention, after we draw you in, we enrich the process in a very reliable, predictable fashion. So engage, enrich, it has a whole lot of really beautiful effectiveness. Right now we're exploring the concept of enrich, engage, enrich, brain enrichment. Also something pretty new. Maybe you didn't even hear about it yet. It's called brain signal variability. Brain signal variability. It's a really big topic because it's a lot more than the brain. That the purity of mathematics is filled with attraction, but also there are a lot of lies of convenience. I'll use something a little bit similar. It's different. I think you might have heard about heart rate variability. Did you hear about heart rate variability? Okay. Briefly, it's like the thing where we didn't think the adult brain could change and then it does, where you think regularity is really good. With my car, I want the pistons in the engine to be functioning very regularly. I don't want, right? In mechanisms, we want that reliable regularity. So we think, well, our body must be kind of like a machine, so we want that really regular thing. So if I say, your heart rate is 60 beats per minute. Because there's 60 seconds in a minute, the assumption is, well, that must mean 1 beat per second. If your heart is beating with that kind of periodic regularity, you're probably on the verge of a heart attack. Because what we know now is that between each beat, there has to be a little difference, a little variability, because that's how the heart can respond to the demands of the environment, to what's going on. It can't be perfectly regular. So we have to, well, wait a minute, organic systems, complex systems are not really like my car or like a tick-tock, tick-tock clock. That there has to be this ability to always keep on, we think 1 second is really fast. And 1/10 of a second is like, wow. But now, like in the Olympics, they measure winning and losing in 1/100ths of a second. So we have to be aware of the fact that we have a bias, like based on how fast I can walk, a second is fast, but in the organism, how many decimal points are there? How subtle is that adjustment? Adaptability. Darwin, you said earlier, he had said, I'll paraphrase, but it's pretty close, that those that survive, the species that survives, is not the most intelligent. It's not even the strongest. It's the species that is most adaptable to change. So, variability about the heart. The more variability, because you can measure it pretty easily, the more variability, the more adaptability, the better the score. If you get a measure of your HRV, higher is better. So guess what? Brain signal variability is like, oh, wow. Because when you do EEGs, we can edit. When you do EEGs, you get a measure, like 10 hertz, 12 hertz, 30 hertz. Those are lies. Those are mathematical lies of convenience. Those are averages. Because what's coming out is, you know, it's like 40 hertz. Everybody is excited about 40 hertz now because of rodent studies in Alzheimer's. 40 hertz. The brain doesn't make 40 hertz. Well, maybe it does once in a while. But it's making 39.7662547, right? 40.726533333. Like, how many decimal points do you want? The outcome from an algorithm is human determined. The human writes the algorithm, so the information that's coming out is managed according to the algorithm. And the algorithm says, I don't want all those decimal points. 40 hertz, close enough. It's the mean or the average. So for a long time, the algorithms have been throwing away all the decimal points because it was noise. It's a bunch of noise. I don't want to hear the noise. I want signal in the noise. Out of cybernetics, which is a mechanical information feedback loop, organisms are not like that. It's not like that. We're fuzzy. I said, I guess, yeah, a couple of days ago, that our brain is shimmering, right? Like moonlight on fresh snow. It's shimmering. Brain signal variability. There are a whole bunch of ways of measuring it. One of the things that the NeuroVIZR does is it influences the ability of the brain to have all of these variable adjustments in real time. We say over and over again, a brain that can change when change is required, that's a healthy brain. So another thing we had said in the past about the NeuroVIZR is that its design is such that it can unstick a stuck brain. Unstick a stuck brain. So brain signal variability will become increasingly more important neurologically across the board. For us with the NeuroVIZR, brain signal variability is really at the heart of what we're influencing. Okay, guess what? I'm going to make an imaginary graph. I'll start here. Brain signal variability for executive functions. You know, doing tasks, thinking, planning, problem solving. Here it is. You get born and it gets better and better and better and better and better. And it hits the top at around about 45, middle of your 40s. And then, oh no, it starts to go down and down and down and down and down, and like really down. So unless we do something about it, it's like muscles. You know, I was a lot stronger when I was younger. Now I'm older. I don't do that much physical exercise, so my muscles are getting less powerful, less strong. And with the brain, if the variability is not exercised, guess what? You're going to lose it. Use it or lose it. So, and by the way, that curve goes bonk in dementia and Alzheimer's. Also, that never goes very high in autism. Autism is characterized by low signal variability, more order, more stability, less flexibility, less dynamic. So if we can keep brain signal variability like an elevator in a tall building, that you can go up when you need to go up, you can go down when you need to go down, that there's variability there, that's really important and really healthy. So when we consider aging, oh my God, right now, industrialized countries, between the age of 80 and 85, statistically it's a coin toss. It's about 50-50 whether you're going to be experiencing dementia. So raise your hand if you want to live a long life. I want to live a long life. Well, here's a coin. Happy birthday, you're 80 or 82, flip it. Heads, it's happening. Tails, the other thing is happening. So aging, brain signal variability. Brain signal variability is something the NeuroVIZR focuses on, and it's really critical. We are still in the enrich aspect of engage, enrich, enjoy, enrich. Brain signal variability relates to a number of things. I'm not going to spend time on the science now, but I will say fundamentally the NeuroVIZR can be used in two different ways. One we'll call a brain break. The other we'll call a brain reset. Brain break, brain reset. Okay, what is a brain break? Well, I think it is a rapid, reliable, kind of concentrated, short-term mood regulator. It can shift mood very quickly. And there are lots of times that we want to shift in or out of something. Maybe it's boredom, maybe it's fatigue, maybe it's a lack of concentration, maybe it's an obstruction or a block. You know, if you are sitting for a long time in an uncomfortable chair and your back gets sore, you can just step aside and do a couple of back bends and it will change your feeling in your low back. Short term. But if you've got a chronic low back problem, you're going to have to do something more than just take a little back break once in a while. You're going to have to probably do some kind of series of exercises. Okay, so a brain break is like stretching your back and it feels better. It is a very rapid and reliable, kind of a concentrated, short-term mood regulation. And that's great. You know, instead of maybe whatever people do, whatever we do, you know, like cigarette break or, you know, your seventh coffee or whatever. I mean, there are positive things too, you know, stretch up, you know, go out in the sun. There are lots of different ways, but this one, bam. And you can choose which way you want the mood regulated. Brain break. Brain reset. As a matter of fact, I'll get more specific. High energy brain reset. Our brains have habits based on how we behave. You can say psychologically they're beliefs or perspectives, or you can say they're habits in terms of action, or you can say they're patterns in terms of the brain neurons. That's all the same thing. And because they're habituated, they tend to be self-reinforcing. When we want to change, fill in the blank, we have to understand that in most cases there's a kind of habitual glue. That the habits have been reinforcing themselves. I'm using glue as an image here. That they're stubborn. So, if you want to change and something is glued, I'll use an image from a long time ago. Let's imagine you have a jar of honey and it's filled with toothpicks. And you put it in the refrigerator. Honey gets hard. Toothpicks are frozen in that pattern. I want to change the pattern of the toothpicks. What's the first thing I have to do? I have to soften the honey, because the honey is hard like a brick. So I have to introduce some higher energy into the honey in order for the honey to soften. When the honey is soft, then I can move the toothpicks around. Actually, I can even put in something else, along some marbles with the toothpicks. I don't know. So our brain wants predictability. It wants to know what's happening. That's that top thing, library of the past, prediction of the future. It wants to be correct. But when something is not working and you want it to change, we have to recognize that the habit that already exists doesn't want to change. Habits are self-reinforcing. Every time you do it, it gets easier to do it, so it is habituated. Soften the glue by adding energy, stimulation, and as the glue gets softer, now the neural changes are made more possible. And at that time is when you introduce the new patterns. The imprint happens at that time. Then, as the imprint is put, then you can kind of challenge it, is it going to stay or not? Then you reward it by reinforcing it. Then as the honey stops being so liquid and starts to become more of a solid, especially if you put it back in the fridge, the patterns in there have been changed. This is what is possible with the high energy brain reset of the NeuroVIZR, that we upregulate. In the enrichment process, we drive stimulation up, we increase brain signal variability, but first we soften the glue. There are some distracting, destabilizing, funny things going on. I'll skip all the technicality, but it's a very considered formulaic process of how to use different types of stimulation to help the brain reset its habituation, reset its patterns. Out of psychedelic information theory and the work, high-level work with Carl Friston and Carhart Harris, they developed an acronym, REBUS, like school bus, REBUS. And it's an acronym. In this case, they were using psychedelics. I say you don't need to use psychedelics, you can use something. In this case, the psychoactive agent is crafted light and sound. So what's REBUS? Relax existing beliefs using psychedelics. Relax existing beliefs, patterns, habits, call it what you want. Relax existing beliefs using some kind of psychoactive agent. So that's what we do when we do a high energy brain reset. And if you do this repeatedly along a theme, this is where you get a very reasoned, progressive, long-term neuroplastic trait shaping. I'll repeat that. You get a reasoned and progressive, long-term, what?
Brain shaping.
Trait shaping. So the brain break is about state shift. Brain reset is about trait shaping. So if you appreciate at a basic level that the NeuroVIZR can be used in these two ways, short-term state shift, the brain break, long-term trait shifting, the high energy brain reset, it's amazing.